If you've seen my video about glitches in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, it's no surprise that I love to document these types of issues in my videos, so I thought it would be really fun for us to turn back the clock and dive deep into the glitches of Marvel 2. I'm also really sick, which is why I sound like this, so you'll have to bear with me. Ranging from minor oversights to hardcore technical issues that are tournament banned, there's a plethora of bugs for us to get lost in, but before we begin, I want to make some things clear. Firstly, this video will not contain every single discovered glitch in Marvel 2. It would take way too long to get through them all, and I'm on a tight schedule, so I just wanted to include my favorites. If I leave out anything that you're passionate about, please leave a comment explaining it so that we can all learn more. Secondly, some of these glitches don't exist anymore in the Marvel vs. Capcom collection, so we'll just have to go back to the original Dreamcast and arcade releases for some of these. The game's visual quality and aspect ratio will change in accordance, so please keep that in mind. Finally, I'm getting my information from an extensive NeoSeeker forum, which I'll leave in the description in case you want to conduct further glitch research. Okay, with the intro out of the way, let's whip out our favorite cacti and check out the glitches of Marvel vs. Capcom 2. When playing as Juggernaut, you'll find that he has an install move that increases the damage of his next attack. In theory, this wouldn't help too much as he already does monstrous damage, and the activation's length leaves him open to being attacked. However, if you power up, tag out, and then tag back in, the install's effects are permanently applied, meaning that Juggernaut now has infinite access to the damage increase. This glitch turns Juggernaut's most basic combos into death machines, even allowing for touch of deaths against much of the roster. A glitch to Juggernaut is also wonderful in DHC routes, and don't even get me started on Team Supers. The most common of these involves Juggernaut and BB Hood, as even without the glitch, it can still put the hurt on severely, but with the glitch? You guessed it, dead. The raw damage output he now has is some of the best in the entire game, but it's not all perfect. Although he's a beast when he lands a hit, Juggernaut can struggle to do so against many of the game's common characters, as they have fantastic movement and zoning tools that allow them to effectively escape Juggernaut's pressure. Our glitched friend is simply too big and slow to keep up, and this can make Juggernaut players want to take risks when approaching, often leaving them open for big punishment. This glitch is one of extremes, and it's essentially the Marvel vs. Capcom version of Russian roulette. Either your gamble pays off and the dopamine rush is enthralling, or you end up being in a lot, and I mean a lot of pain. Despite its risks, the power-up glitch is a crucial part of Juggernaut's game plan, and it's pretty much why he's sort of viable, so if you plan on using him, definitely set it up as soon as possible. Just try to be safe about it. This next glitch isn't nearly as useful, but it does look quite interesting. Under normal circumstances, this DHC route looks perfectly normal, but what if we mess with its timing? With Venom and BB Hood ready to go, connect with Venom's Venom Web Super. As soon as this connects, DHC into BB Hood's beautiful Memory Super. If performed correctly, things start to go a bit haywire. This doesn't work if you let Venom Super play out a bit, so speed is key, you have to be really fast. I'm unsure of why this happens exactly, but I suspect that it has something to do with the game struggling to track the opponent character's coordinates as they move between an aerial and grounded state. Even though BB Hood's super plays out mostly as intended in terms of her animation, it doesn't connect properly, leading to its combo properties never kicking in. This allows enemies to escape the animation, making it minus on hit. Ouch! There's also a chance that the enemy will phase through the floor before reappearing, and I believe this is due to the waterfall that appears during the regular super. Perhaps the waterfall's behavior carries out despite not being rendered on the screen, I'm not too sure. In terms of practicality, I honestly can't think of a reason why anyone would intentionally activate this glitch. It costs 2 bars of meter and puts you in a losing position, so unless you just want to confuse the heck out of your opponent, I'd probably give this one a miss. It may not be great when taking competitive viability into account, but look on the bright side, it's hilarious. If you thought that was all Venom and BB Hood had to offer, you would be wrong, because when you pair them up with the King of Shadaloo, there's yet another glitch they can perform. When your opponent is on low health, perform the same sequence as before, but this time, summon Bison's projectile assist before you activate Venom's super. When BB Hood begins her super, she'll start traveling at the speed of light before throwing the enemy to the ground. At this point, you might have noticed something a bit extra. Although the screen flashes white to indicate that the character on the receiving end should be dead, they somehow get back up and keep fighting. At this point, I was hoping they would stay alive forever, totally breaking the game in the process, but sadly this isn't the case. If they take even a pixel of damage or tag out, they'll go down for real. The glitch doesn't happen without Bison's assist, so I'm confident that my favorite Street Fighter villain is playing a major role here. More specifically, my suspicions lay on the multi-hitting nature of the move. As the assist normally sends the enemy slightly away from you, combining it with a super that is designed to keep you close and pull you in causes the game to become confused, and it kind of freaks out in the process. The gameplay implications of this bug aren't too crazy. I mean, there's not much you can do when even Surfbot can chip you to death, but at least it gives players one last fighting chance to make a comeback. Much like the previous glitch, it's not mind-blowing, but I still recommend going for it, even if it's just to mess with the other player. If you're a lover of freedom, the Second Amendment, and copious amounts of cholesterol, oh boy do I love it, then you'll have no doubt messed around with Guile before, but I wonder if you're familiar with his blade lock glitch. This was actually patched out of the Western Dreamcast release, as well as the MVC collection, so in order for us to experience this bug, we have to move over to the Japanese Dreamcast version. With that being said, it still exists in the 2009 HD re-release of the game, and I'm not really sure why it's there and not in the Western Dreamcast release. It's kind of peculiar. After selecting Guile's Alpha Assist and having him out on the battlefield, input a snapback with Assist 2, and then Team Super. Normally, Guile's Flash Kick Super shoots out upwards projectiles, but in the context of this Team Super, these projectiles stay glued to the ground. The hitboxes are still active, but even after they connect, they stay on screen. Performing this glitch again will cause even more of them to appear, and I don't believe that there's a projectile limit, so go wild, put as much plasma on the screen as you can. Unlike the previous two glitches, this one has legitimate gameplay purposes, as when the projectiles are on screen, the enemy cannot move backwards. This is due to them being placed into a proximity block state when inputting any back motion, so you can strategically place the blades in such a way that forces weaker movement options onto the opponent. Unfortunately, these blades can easily be destroyed by clashing projectiles, not to mention the glitch's meter cost. Attempting to snap back and Team Super requires players to spend at least 3 bars of meter, so this bug is very expensive. These drawbacks allow the glitch to be tournament legal, and as Guile himself has never been more than a low or maybe a mid tier, you'll usually never see him in high level play anyway. The bottom line is that while really fun to perform and spectate, the chances of this glitch happening in a real match between two pro players are slim to none, especially because you can't do it on any Western version of the game that is still being played. If you've ever seen just how high the combo counter can get in Marvel 2 and want to see what it looks like when it's pushed to its limits, then look no further. All we need to perform this bug is to select Gambit with a large character and make them fight against 3 Surfbots. Sorry buddy. All you have to do here is call in Juggernaut, make Surfbot input a Team Super, and then do Gambit's Projectile Super. Lord knows I tried many times to execute this bug on the Dreamcast version of the game, but I just couldn't. Luckily, I managed to find a 2-year-old video I posted on Discord that showcases what the bug looks like in action. As you can see, Gambit's Super leads to the combo counter rapidly increasing, and it quickly reaches the 999 hit mark. I could be wrong about this, but from memory, the super will automatically end if you leave it alone, although this takes some time. You can also DHC into another character to end the lengthy animation, but if you've gone to the trouble of executing this bug, you might as well see it through to the end. Watching Gambit let loose with his kinetic cards never gets old, even if it leads to Surfbot being trapped in a lifetime of agony. It's now time to explore a glitch that you'll often see, although I wonder how many of you have ever noticed it before. I know that I never did until I started paying attention for this video. When Sentinel is on the field, enter flight mode and initiate his hard drive super. DHC into another character, and when they end their super, DHC back into Sentinel when possible. You may notice that Sentinel's orange flames are now blue, taking their appearance from when he enters flight mode. I speculate that since Sentinel never touched the ground after activating flight, the game is under the impression that he's still in the flying state when he returns to the screen. This obviously isn't the case, as we can clearly see his robot legs touching the ground, but I don't think the game itself gets the memo. Whenever our robot friend moves around or attacks, his flames will now be blue, and I actually prefer this color over the regular orange. If you disagree and you really want the original color back, it's as easy as pie. Just fly and then leave flight mode. Done. With how Sentinel is arguably the best character in the whole game, I'm glad this simple glitch doesn't give him any more gameplay improvements. He's already crazy strong as it is, and doesn't need any enhancements to his GPU. It's definitely possible to see this bug in a real game, but with how Sentinel players tend to primarily spend meter on Hyper Sentinel Force, Plasma Storm, and Alpha counters, hard drive often doesn't get used that much, and with how dominating the previous 3 moves are, I understand why. Sentinel's blue flames are really minor, but I find them to be super aesthetically pleasing, and they make him look even cooler when he's tearing up the character roster. Moving down the tier list redirects our attention to Saber-tooth, who was always one of my favorite characters as a kid. While not as strong as his X-Men vs Street Fighter incarnation, Saber-tooth can still thrash unaware opponents with his deadly strikes, and he only gets stronger when calling on his assistant, Birdie. She introduces projectiles to Saber-tooth's toolkit, and even has her own dedicated super. Way to go, Birdie. The idea behind this glitch is to have the special move Birdie and Team Super Birdie on screen at once, meaning that you could summon 2 birdies at the same time. Initially, I was unable to replicate this glitch in training mode, but after a friend of mine screen recorded a demonstration for me, I figured out why I wasn't able to land it. When you do a Team Super in Marvel 2, your point character is forced to remain still if they recover early. Try all you want, but there's no way to move until your other characters have finished attacking. However, if you only have 1 character left, the game thinks, well, since there's only 1 character remaining, the Team Super will end as soon as they return to a neutral state. I mean, it's not like there were any other characters alive to keep the Team Super going, right? Well, no, because as Saber-tooth recovers before Birdie does, the game believes that the Team Super has ended even though she is still shooting. This allows Saber-tooth to Team Super again, beginning a loop. This will last for as long as Saber-tooth has meter, so it's sort of like the Marvel 2 version of Virgil's sword loops. Unfortunately, I don't think this glitch has a realistic chance of happening in a real game due to Birdie's special move having a ton of startup, so any opponent can easily super jump out of the way on reaction. Despite this, it's still one of my favorite glitches because of how many Birdie Saber-tooth has access to. Maybe the real Birdie, or what we thought was the real Birdie, is actually a clone. This next glitch isn't one that I planned on including, but I received a request from a friend of mine to do so here's to you, Salty. As a result of the PS3 and Xbox 360 revisions of Marvel 2 featuring rollback netcode, it's more than likely for the game to sometimes break during an online match, resulting in all sorts of rollback-induced shenanigans. As I currently don't have access to these versions of the game, I can't experiment with any of these for myself, but it's quite easy to find footage online of these netcode issues taking place. And I don't mean simple stuff like the game rolling back after a KO because it made an incorrect prediction about the next frame. I'm talking about really bad issues. Things like Anakaris being summoned as an assist despite clearly being the point character, or Ruby Heart somehow shapeshifting into Iceman. Call me crazy, but I don't think this is intentional. If you would like to see more of these rollback issues, I can't recommend Anakaris Curse enough. This dude is insane at Marvel 2, and he has hundreds of videos on his YouTube channel that document the game's weird quirks, so definitely check him out. In addition to Anakaris Curse, many other channels have thankfully recorded glitch footage, and the more you dig, the crazier these videos become. Nothing, and I mean nothing, is sacred when Marvel 2 PS3's netcode is on life support, so you should expect to see things that will never appear in your wildest dreams. As a distinguished thief and member of the X-Men, Gambit provides some of the most stylish animations you'll ever see in the Versus series, but in this game he also has access to an infamous glitch that was instantly banned, and for those wanting to wreak havoc, it's quite simple to do. With Gambit out, perform a snapback using Assist 2, and immediately begin holding down. This is to charge his Cajun Strike special move. Wait a moment, and then as the enemy is coming in, initiate the move while holding left. Gambit will fly out of the Earth's atmosphere, probably to return to his home planet. Normally, Cajun Strike forces Gambit to track to either the left or the right side of the screen before coming down with a strike, but when performed after a snapback, the move's tracking properties seem to completely break. I think Gambit is programmed to keep ascending until he makes contact with the edge of the screen, but since this bug prevents him from connecting properly, there's nothing to stop him from infinitely gaining height. As far as I know, this completely softlocks the match, forcing players to pause and return to the character select screen. However, if you're a fan of Bison or Spiral, you can thankfully use their teleports to reach Gambit and smack him down, but if you don't have either of them on your team, you're out of luck. A glitch of this caliber is obviously not allowed in tournament play, and Capcom rightfully sought to remove it in the Marvel vs. Capcom collection. Thank God for this, as it would suck if Gambit players could do this bug to win via an easy life lead in ranked matches, although I can't lie, that would be really funny. As the lone representative of the underrated star Gladiator, Hayato is a futuristic sword wielder with access to plasma combos, and you can think of these as target combos. Basically, hold a direction and start pressing punch buttons to get these awesome looking attack sequences. The most important of which, at least for this video, is his backlight punch plasma combo, as its 4 hits allow for a really funny glitch. Starting off with 2 meters, input this string, and on the final hit, cancel it into his level 3. This can be tricky due to the move requiring a Raging Demon input, but get it just right and Hayato will become frozen in time. Normally, I wouldn't be too concerned for Hayato's health, but as his whole body is flashing like the inside of a nightclub, I'm starting to become a bit worried. Anyway, Hayato is permanently stuck in this state until the opponent strikes him or he super jumps, returning the match to normal. What's most interesting is how you have to input the level 3 while having less than 3 bars of meter. When I tried to input the super with over 3 meters, the glitch never worked, and I think it's because the game is trying to cancel into a move that requires meter when Hayato doesn't have any. If you do land it, there's really no practical use for the glitch, and what makes it even worse is that it's kind of tricky to perform in the first place. If you mess up the timing, the plasma combo will end normally, and that's simply no fun. We're here for glitches, darn it. Get it just right, however, and you'll trigger the bug. At first, I found this really hard to do, but the trick is to start inputting the Raging Demon input as the final hit of the string connects. If you can perform it super quickly, you can consistently make this work. Only attempt this if you're a big Hayato fan, a crazy, or maybe a mix of both, as it literally does nothing except for making you vulnerable. Supporting Mother Russia, Zangief is here to pummel the enemy into submission, and he can even change the very fabric of his body to do so. When Zangief activates this install, he undergoes all sorts of changes, but what's relevant here is when he goes up against Magneto or Iceman. As both of their forward throws temporarily freeze the enemy, starting combos is as easy as pie, but what if you want to snap one of the opponent's characters in? If you freeze Metal Zangief, and specifically Metal Zangief, not the regular one, and snap him out, he surprisingly won't fly off the screen. Instead, he'll turn completely invisible? Yeah, that's right. When Zangief is in this state, the aggressor can do whatever they like, so go crazy. At first, I thought this bug involved a weird interaction with Metal Zangief and any capture throw, but much to my surprise, this is a time where Venom doesn't trigger a glitch. I'm not sure what it is with these two characters that makes the glitch happen, but it's probably due to some quirk in Marvel 2's programming. Thankfully, this doesn't lead to a soft lock, as it's possible for Zangief to escape by jumping. Gief's simple escape method severely limits how much you can gain from activating this exploit, as you're lucky if you'd be able to land a single combo before he jumps. A glitch that requires this many specific actions is unlikely to occur in a real match, and as these guys can effectively rush down and zone Zangief respectively, this bug is seemingly training mode only. I would love to see it happen for real though. What we're now covering is definitely the most iconic glitch in all of Marvel vs. Capcom, and I'm sure many of you know exactly what I'm going to say just by who I have on screen. This only works in the arcade version, so if you have access to an emulator or an actual cabinet, go ahead and try this. With Ruby Heart on screen, hold start. When her taunt finishes, make sure to keep holding down start, and then perform her quarter circle forward and light punch attack. By changing the direction you travel, all sorts of weird stuff happens, including messed up sprites, teleportation, and even freezing the game. The Neo Seeker forum also claims that you can gain free credits, which for an arcade game is wild. If you know even the smallest details about Marvel 2, there's a guarantee that you're familiar with the infamous video I have on screen, but for those who don't know, please enjoy this piece of Marvel history. There's a bootleg machine in an arcade near me that has a weird version of Marvel 2 with a trackball of all things, and I couldn't resist the urge to do it there. I know, it doesn't paint me in a great light on the moral alignment chart, but I swear I won't do it again. As far as I know, all versions of the game released after its initial arcade launch removed this glitch, and for good reason. I doubt Capcom were happy once they found out that players could crash their machine with minimal effort, so I understand why it was taken out. You're gone, but definitely not forgotten, Ruby Heart glitch. This next glitch isn't as mental as the one we just covered, but it's still pretty cool, mainly because it involves Shuma G.O.R.E. As Marvel vs. Capcom's de facto charge character, Shuma can shoot out eye bombs that, after becoming stuck to the enemy, explode for some nice damage. What's important to note is that once they connect, the eyes are unblockable, but they will instantly disappear if the enemy makes contact with Shuma. There's also no way for Shuma to manually detonate the bombs whenever he wants, at least not normally. When the bombs are stuck, DHC out of there to bring in your next character for a guaranteed hit. Eagle-eyed viewers will observe that even though Shuma didn't actually make contact with Blackheart, the bombs automatically exploded. This happens because when Shuma leaves the screen, his eye bombs are programmed to despawn, but they can't just magically disappear as that would look a bit unpolished. Instead, they explode, becoming unblockable in the process, and this also works from a hard tag. It's not hard to find really old Mike Z videos online demonstrating just how busted this glitch can be when placed in the right hands, with it helping Shuma to escape being a bottom-of-the-barrel character. Look, I love our green calamari friend as much as the next guy, but it's no secret that he's never been viewed by the community as a strong fighter. Having access to this glitch gives Shuma extra strategy on top of his charge motions and multi-hitting normals, so there can be a lot to play around with if you decide to experiment with potentially lethal unblockable setups. When paired with the right partners, Shuma G.O.R.E can turn from a low tier into a beast, so make sure to never get hit by these bombs, your life literally depends on it. Yep, there's yet another glitch relating to Venom Web. It's almost like Capcom just didn't test the super out or something, but at least we have a cool ninja on our team this time. When the enemy is trapped inside of the giant web, DHC into Strider's Ragnarok super. What's supposed to happen is that a cutscene plays out where Strider influences their trajectory before crashing down for a satisfying finish, but when initiated in this scenario, the enemy automatically breaks free from the web. If they remain standing, Strider's super will mostly play out as intended, but there's nothing stopping them from simply jumping away and blocking, so I don't see why they wouldn't just do this. I'm pretty sure that this is yet another unintentional behavior involving back-to-back supers that weren't tested properly, but what I find most interesting is how even though the enemy leaves the combo state, and therefore the super animation, Strider keeps going like nothing weird ever happened. After thinking about it for a while, I believe that the enemy's ability to move independently of Strider involves the game being confused about how to handle a cinematic super after Venom's capture state. If we try this bug using other capture states, it will never work, so there's something specific about Venom Web in the game's code that triggers this bug. If it isn't obvious by now, giving the enemy an opportunity to escape what should be guaranteed damage will never work in your favor, so if you really want to initiate this DHC, try waiting a tiny bit longer before you call in Strider. You're still spending 2 bars for horrible damage, but hey, at least it's guaranteed to fully connect this way. It's time to once again examine Ruby Heart, but don't worry, this next glitch isn't as severe as the previous one. Ruby can call on her ghost buddies to latch onto the enemy, stealing their meter in the process. This is quite the unique move, as not many characters have meter drain abilities, but if it were that simple, we wouldn't be talking about it. When the treasure chest is on screen, but before the ghost appears, perform a snapback with the second assist button. From this point on, the ghost will hover vertically and then phase through the ground. I'm not sure why this happens, but if you see this, that means you've successfully initiated the glitch, so good job. For some reason, the enemy will no longer be able to move backwards from this point on. You can see that poor Ken is trying to backdash with all of his might, but he's stuck in perpetual block stun. Once the glitch is active, the enemy is prevented from employing runaway strategies, restricting characters who thrive when played this way. Also, every character on the opposing team is affected by this bug, so you can cripple 3 characters for the price of only 1 bar. This may not seem like a huge deal on the surface, but if you try playing a match without being able to move backwards at all, you'll start to understand just how deadly this bug can be. The only downside for Ruby Heart is that she can only have 1 ghost at a time, meaning that no extra ghost can be summoned until she inputs her ghost super. At this point, the glitch will end, so I'd advise you to keep it active for as long as possible. With full movement options ready to go, Ruby and her teammates have a wonderful time dictating the pace of the match, so if they're fighting a character who is low on health, it's party time. Yet another all-American hero makes his way into the video, although this thankfully doesn't require a snapback or a team super. If you've ever connected with Captain America's Final Justice and want to perform an early DHC to earn some style points, you'll find that it's quite easy to mess up and have the enemy fall through your next super, completely ruining your combo in the process. Well, if you wait for them to nearly finish descending during their falling animation and then DHC, the enemy will magically appear just above the ground, allowing for consistent follow-ups. Because the enemy is completely at your mercy while standing, you can combo into all sorts of supers with lengthy startup, my favourite of which being Morrigan's projectile super. The sky is the only limit when figuring out how to perform otherwise impossible DHC routes, and to make them more consistent, I'd recommend initiating this bug in the corner. I'd be lying if I said this glitch was stupendously useful and had a real impact on Marvel 2's meta, but at least it's enjoyable to see the enemy teleport back down to the ground. If the idea of messing up character coordinates and positioning sounds intriguing, then you're definitely going to want to try this next glitch out. With Venom and Omega Red, call in the latter's assist right before you forward throw them with Venom. If the opponent's character is in the middle of an action, they'll remain upside down when Omega Red's animation ends. Timing is very important, as if there's a gap between the throw and assist, the bug won't work. You have to time it so that Omega Red's coil hits the enemy right after Venom's throw finishes. Neoseeker tells me that you can also use Venom's super and make the enemy hold up to initiate this glitch, but I wasn't able to pull it off this way. This bug also isn't permanent however, as if the enemy's action finishes, they will return to a neutral state, ending the glitch. On the other hand, if the affected fighter keeps the action going, you can move them around the screen, and this looks amazing. As many actions in Marvel 2 are quite short, it's best to test it out on Cable because of his taunt. It's normally a simple twirl of his laser gun, but if you keep mashing the taunt button, you can keep it going for as long as you want. As for why this happens, I think it has something to do with the movement forced onto the enemy by Omega Red. This is quite the complicated trajectory, and as Venom's capture throw plays a major role in other glitches, combining these two moves is a recipe for disaster. You would never see this in a real match though, and as every character can instantly break free by pressing a single button, it would normally be over in less than a second, but in training mode, yeah, it's awesome. Going back to the exploits of Marvel vs. Capcom 2's Bonnie and Clyde, there's a way to make their DHC glitch even stranger, and as I'd never heard of it before I started researching for this video, I wanted to leave something super interesting for last. When the opponent's first character is taken out by the DHC glitch, no, not you, different DHC glitch, get them to tag out. When their next character comes in, BB Hood also has to defeat them. When this happens, you'll notice that in addition to the game's frame rate taking a nosedive, weird visual artifacts appear on the screen when both characters begin to move around. This isn't a soft lock however, as the timer will eventually hit 0 and result in a time over victory. To make matters worse, if you pause the game, parts of the map will begin to disappear, along with the meter display info. I thought long and hard about why all of this depravity is taking place, but I'm unable to come up with a solid explanation. If I had to guess, maybe the Dreamcast is having trouble rendering 3D assets after the previous situation plays out, or maybe it's just my emulator? This is one of those glitches that encourages players to experiment with all sorts of enemy character combinations to see if certain characters bring extra properties with them. As someone who loves to push games to their limits, it was so much fun trying to replicate all these glitches in Marvel 2, no matter how difficult some of them were to initiate. As you can see, I worked really hard trying to do all the math myself regarding the game's character roster, which led me to find that there are over 700,000 possible team combinations for players to choose from, meaning that it was impossible for the poor developers to find and remove all of these issues before the game's initial arcade launch. If you attempt to try any of these out for yourself, I would suggest getting your hands on either the arcade or Dreamcast conversion, as many of the featured glitches were removed for other versions of Marvel 2. Okay, I think it's time for me to try to play the game normally without forcing it to crash, so I'll take my leave for now. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your time and I hope you had fun, and I also apologize again for the state of my voice. It's not great and my throat is on fire, but I still wanted to get a video out. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.